Would you stay till the morning light? Or would you follow me? Or would you let it be? If I leave tonight,
Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kayla, and if you're not new, thanks for coming back. Always happy to have you. If you're new here, I like to do a lot of book and reading and lifestyle and cozy Disney content, and if you like any of those things, think about hitting that subscribe button and sticking around. I have a lot of fun content coming for the end of 2022 and early 2023, and I would love to share it with you. I am very excited for today's video. I haven't done this kind of video in a very long time, probably since like my 2017 stint on YouTube, on BookTube. But we're gonna talk about my top 10 favorite reads for 2022. I am pre-filming and pre-editing a lot of videos right now so I can kind of chill out during the holidays and enjoy the time with my family. I'm traveling over the holidays, so I just want to be prepped, and I want to share with you my favorite reads. I did a lot of reading because I think this is the year that I've read the most. The last time I met my reading goal was 2017. I wanted to read 30 books and I read 32. I've read 30 books. I met my goal for this year. It is December 8th right now, and I have read 32 books. So I know I'm gonna finish some more, but it's been 5 years since I've made my reading goal, which is a little bit nuts. Without further ado, let's get into it. What were the best books I read in 2022? While I'm talking and chat about books, let me know what some of your favorite reads. Do you have a favorite book of 2022 that you read? Later this week, I will have my most anticipated reads of 2023. So be out on the lookout for that video coming very soon. But let's wrap up 2022. I'm gonna save my top book for the end. And my top book is 2 books. If you've been watching my channel this year, you probably know what they are because I talked about them a lot. But the rest are in no particular order. I just had like a #1 favorite book of this year, but the other ones I didn't like rank. A lot of them, if you're on my channel, you've been watching, these will be familiar for you guys because you've seen me reading them throughout the year. But I figured I would share them with you anyway. The first book I want to talk to you guys about is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm kind of clumping the whole series into that one title, but I read the first 2 books and I'm still waiting to read The Final Gambit, which is the last book. But the Inheritance Games follows Avery Graham, who's gotten this letter that she is been gifted an estate from a billionaire she's never met before that recently passed away, but she has to survive 1 year living on his estate with his family, and they're all pretty pissed that they didn't get the money instead. So she has to go and kind of figure out why she's been left all of this money from somebody she doesn't know. It's super fast paced. It sucks you in. It's a cool kind of like puzzle book. I love books like that because I'm not smart enough to figure out the puzzles. I love being a spectator in those books and not necessarily actively trying to solve it myself, but just watching them do it and be really smart in figuring out all the puzzles makes me feel like part of the team. Like I said, that is a trilogy. It's a finished trilogy. I've read the first 2, still waiting to read the last one because I don't want the series to end, but they're very good. The next book, I was surprised when I was looking through all the books that I read ended up on my TBR, but it did, because I've read this is the second book I read this year, and that was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's my first V.E. Schwab read. I wasn't sure, I was super hyped, so I was hesitant to read it, but I really liked Addie LaRue. It's a cool like deal with the devil story about this girl who is forced to kind of live forever, and once she meets somebody and walks away from them, they don't remember who she is. It's a very lonely existence of her living her life for like 200 years or something like that, and nobody ever remembers her. She can't stay in one place, like she can't really have a life, but she's just kind of anonymous until she goes to New York and she meets somebody who actually remembers her. It's a very like sweet love story, but you get all these glimpses of different parts of the world at different time periods, and I loved V.E. Schwab's writing. I really enjoyed Addie LaRue. It was a perfect kind of standalone. I was happy with how it wrapped up. It took me a little while to get into, but once I was into it, I flew through Addie LaRue. People have mixed reviews on it, but I really liked it. The second one is probably the only classic that I read this year, and I don't even know if it counts as a classic, but I read The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. J.R.R. Oh my god, I just misspoke. I'm watching Game of Thrones, so I've been getting George R. Martin and J.R.R. Tolkien confused, but I did read The Hobbit. I've had to read The Hobbit before, but I didn't pay attention to it as much because I read it for school and I'd never seen the movies, but I love the Hobbit movies, so this year I wanted to reread the story, and I'm really happy that I did. Now that I've seen the movies and I like a little bit understand it a bit more, reading the book was so happy because I knew it was coming. Like, I knew these characters so well. I could visualize what Tolkien was talking about, and I loved it. A classic, quick read. It was like 350 or so pages, and I actually did vlog that experience if you're interested. Next up was a new read, but another, like, I think well-beloved book that I just hadn't read, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I thought it was so beautifully written and such a beautiful book and a cool concept, and just like magical realism, like magic in the real world that you can believe. I love books like that. I love books that make you believe that there's a little bit of magic in your reality, and The Night Circus did that for me. I really liked reading The Night Circus. Mixed reviews on the Starless Sea of whether or not I should read it, but you let me know what you think. The next, I actually listened to it, and it was kind of what sparked me getting more into audiobooks at the end of this year, and that was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I know it was a super popular book. The movie came out. I had to read it for my book club, and I actually really liked that story. I liked learning about the marsh and Kaya and her experiences. It's a really interesting life somebody could live, and I just really liked that story overall. I liked to listen to it. I liked the movie. I don't know that I would reread it again to read the physical form book, but I really liked the story. I liked that the ending was kind of like this twist. It was a little bit of a mystery, trying to figure out what happened, but that wasn't the central or the main focus of the book. It was just kind of part of it, like on the edges, and I liked that. There was a story beyond just a murder mystery. I didn't read a ton of romance this year, and I feel like I read a lot last year, but I read The Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and it made me want to get into this like kind of new genre of rom-com romance, and Book Lovers was a great place to start. I love books that take place in the book world, and that feature like bookish people that like reading, book nerds that get it. Like, it's like, you're a kindred spirit, and that's what Book Lovers was, and it was this like quaint, cozy rom-com movie wrapped into it. Absolutely loved it. I loved the setting. Sunshine Falls, North Carolina. I loved the love interest. I loved that love connection. I loved Emily Henry's writing and her humor. She's so funny. I also read it on vacation. That always helps, but it did make me want to read more of these like rom-com style romance books that are becoming really popular. It was my first Emily Henry, and I do want to read her other ones, like Beach Read and People You Meet on Vacation. I also have one of her books coming out next year on my most anticipated reads for 2023. This is a really recent read for me, but it was just so unique and different, and it was about a topic that I'm really interested in, that it made the top 10, and I wouldn't have thought that, but it is The Watch That Ends the Night by Alan Wolfe. It is a story of the voices of the Titanic. It's a novel in verse, about the sinking of the Titanic, and you hear from all these different people on board. You hear from the iceberg through short little poems and the changing perspective that takes place over those couple days of the Titanic voyage. Being a novel in verse, it's very like lyrical and lovely and beautiful writing, and very musical to read out loud to yourself. Each voice felt distinct enough and had its own storyline, but they all came together really beautifully, overlapped really nicely together. But I literally read it in a couple hours. A great read. I'm very fascinated by the Titanic, so I was excited to finally read this book. It came out when I worked at the bookstore a few years ago, but I never got to it, and now I'm happy that I finally have. This is another really recent read, but I didn't read a lot of middle grade either this year, and I kind of missed that. But I read one middle grade book that was super magical and just like inspiring, enlightening, again about the love of books and the magic of books, and that is Tilly and the Book Wanderers, which is in the Pages & Co series by Anna James. Tilly is this girl who grew up with her grandparents in a bookstore, and once she turns like 11, I believe, she learns that she can wander into books and experience the stories along with the characters, and she can bring characters out of those books. So she travels to Anne of Green Gables and Alice in Wonderland, and she just plays along in these stories, and she starts to discover that her mom, who's been missing for many years, might be lingering in one of these books and has to find her. And it was just like so wholesome and sweet, and just like the ability to book wander comes from loving reading and the magic of books and reading, which is just like such a wholesome thought for somebody who loves books so much. And then this was a reread, and I tried really hard to keep it off the list, but I can't ignore the fact that I read it in one day. But A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas came back to my top 10 this year. I hadn't read it since I read it for the first time in 2017, and I read it and I was like, I wonder if I'll still like it as much. Did I ever? I read that book in less than 24 hours. I love that series. I love Feyre. I love Prythian. I love the magic. I love the concept. I love the nods to Beauty and the Beast. I love it all. 10 out of 10. What I will always love A Court of Thorns and Roses. And so it has a very fitting place here on the top 10 of 2022. And lastly, my top books of 2022. You can probably guess. I'm gonna pause your guess down in the comments. Let me know what you think. What do you think is my top book? If you've been around, you might get it. Are you ready? It is Kingdom of the Feared and Kingdom of the Cursed by Carrie Maniscalco. Kingdom of the Cursed was the first book that I read in 2022, and then I read the last book in the series in October, and they both were so good. I flew through them. I was obsessed with them. I got sucked into them. That series is so good. I cannot say enough good things about it. I cannot stop telling people about the Kingdom of the Wicked series. It is so good. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it because I've talked about it a lot on this channel. Trilogy, it is done. It is complete. Very briefly, it follows Amelia, who is a witch living in Italy, and her sister has been murdered, and she's in a string of murders of witches in their town, and she summons a demon to try and figure out what happened and why she's been murdered to stop these murders. And she actually ends up summoning a prince of hell, and these 7 deadly sins are the princes of hell. So good. If you're gonna pick up one book from this list, go pick up Kingdom of the Wicked, and you'll thank me later. So good. But those are my top 10 reads of my 30-something reads of 2022. Let me know in the comments what your favorite book was, or if you've read any of the ones that I read this year. What do you think of my top 10 list? And you'll have to stay tuned to see what the top 10 for 2023 are. And I'll see you in my next one. Have a great one wherever you are. Happy reading, and I'll see you on Instagram at RoyReadingCo. Bye.
Would you stay till the morning light, or would you follow